because there are people. We have people waiting. / hopefully will be showing up. Holy moly, Joseph! It's been. It looks like we're live. Hopefully everything.
Volta, did you see what Volta said in the troll room?
Yeah, the show is so boring. I thought you guys might have just quit covering it. What? Boring? No. um,
You'll like my comment.
you know, yeah. Well, you could say that.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I feel like we should at least start the show that way, just because
Yes.
it's been almost a month. I was looking back at it. It's been about 3 weeks total.
People were calling me, emailing me, texting me. Have y'all quit? Did y'all hang it up? Was that the last episode? And y'all just ghost?
Just like,
I was like, blame David. It's his fault.
Yeah, it's just like Rings of Power is just too much, guys. It finally did us in.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
So tell the good people what you've been up to, David.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So for those of you who potentially are unaware, the eastern part of the United States got hit by Hurricane Helene about 3 weeks ago, and I was directly in the path and probably right in the middle of the area that got hit the worst. No power or water for just about 2 weeks. Then the internet, once I got power back, our internet was still garbage. They were doing a lot of like line work and stuff, so they kept turning the internet on and off. So we just
You didn't get Starlink and take Elon Musk up on his offer?
Dude, well, first of all, Starlink's really expensive. And so no, dude, I almost borderline. I almost took all of my gear to the company that I work for, and I borderline thought about setting it up there just so we could record. But then I was like, oh, it's a lot. I've got 3 monitors and the soundboard and
that would be so
like
awesome.
the audio interface, like the whole deal. It was just
while it's open though too. Though.
Yeah, just in the middle. Well, yeah, the inside of the store's closed right now, but yeah. So yes, thank you. I'm safe. Unfortunately, a lot of other people did not have the same outcome as me, I guess. We won't go into too many details. I mean, you guys can kind of, if you don't know a ton about it, you can look into it. But it's been pretty bad. And if anyone was curious, they've definitely been underreporting a lot of the damage and loss of life and other stuff going on. I've heard some crazy stories.
On that note, David, just to let you know, I don't know, I'm sure you're probably not aware of this, but I was just curious what the people who have come out was. And so for North Carolina, because early voting has started, and
dude,
for the first time ever, Republicans have a 2-to-1 advantage, or just have an advantage at all is something, but having a 2-to-1 advantage on Democrats right now as far as with early voting and going to the polls. So people must be pretty upset with
people
her response to Helene.
I don't. Okay, so I for those, I guess we can talk about it. We don't get into this stuff quite like we used to, but people are just kind of pissed in general, I think. And for those of you that are younger or just don't really remember, typically when you have a lot of bad news kind of leading up to an election, it's not good for the incumbent. Or the potential party of who was the incumbent. In the case of Bush, he was out. But part of what hurt the Republicans at the time was Katrina, the coverage of it. It doesn't really matter. I mean, because I'm trying to.
It was just a big disaster.
It was a really big mess, and the area definitely was not prepared for it, but the quote-unquote leadership, but really just the elected officials, I mean, they just, not only did they have no idea what to do or what they were doing, every time they got on and were like talking about it, it didn't give anybody any sort of like hope, you know. Um,
Yeah.
and I'll say this, and then we can kind of move on, because this was kind of my experience from it, and I think this is what a lot of people kind of came out of it. And just generally, this has kind of been my stance with things a long time. It's just something like this really proved the point. The people around you, your neighbors, your friends, your family in the area that you are, you really got to get to see what they're like when push comes to shove, despite kind of how they think politically. It's, I don't have to get super deep into it, but it's one of the reasons why I am not a fan of, federal government and, a lot of people, these 300 people that live in Washington that have like a lot of say over, what I do on a day-to-day basis. Even the people in my state who want to try to tell me what to do all the time. It's like they just, when it comes down to it, like the people who are going to help you, who are going to move trees out of your yard, or who are going to help get the roads clear when something this big happens, it's going to be Joe Blow down the street with a chainsaw. Yep. That's who helped initial recoveries. And I've had conversations with some of the military folks that have come through, and they were here, and a lot of them are doing what they can, but there's a lot of people who, they're still in bad straits. Like a lot of we have roads, dude, that aren't gonna be rebuilt, like allegedly. But I have friends that live in the area, roads and highways to some of these places that aren't even looking to be rebuilt until like 2028. So it's they'll get gravel out there. People, I'm sure some people heard, like it's a very mountainous area that I'm in, and you got a lot of mountain people around here, and they're tough folks. And they kind of know how to get things done, even if they don't have the most. It's not going to be a luxurious road, but a lot of them, they're like, cool, let's get some gravel down, make sure things are moving, and the power companies did an incredible job. Even the folks doing like our water and everything around here, working really hard to get everything back up and running. So they're there, but as far as like, when they're saying like help has arrived, blah blah blah. It feels to me the same way that kind of Katrina did. It's a little bit different in some ways. You didn't have you didn't have as many people like staying on top of their houses. A lot of people got stuck in their houses. Like just they were trapped inside, and people like scuba diving into the houses, having to mark the houses that people were in them, and then moving on because they don't have any way of like actually rescuing the people out of there.
Hey man,
just wild stuff, But all of that to be said, learns it would behoove anyone who happens to hear this to learn some extra skills. Maybe learn how to run a chainsaw if you got a lot of trees in the area that you live in, because you never know. There's a lot of like these little interesting skills and things that I wrote notes down about. Okay, maybe this is something that would come in handy in the future. This is maybe something I need to look into a little bit more. But yeah, we're good. Family's good. Everybody that I work with is accounted for, and thankfully, other than one girl that I know that used to work with me, her family lost everything. Their house literally got removed from the foundation.
Dang, dude.
And a massive piece of like concrete landed on, like, I guess when the water was like going down or whatever, like landed on her car. Probably. Her car was probably totaled anyway, just because of how high the water got. Like the engine completely got flooded. This kind of stuff happens, and it's like total loss on a lot of stuff. And of course, nobody around here has flood insurance either. So it's been pretty crazy. So that's all. We don't need to talk about it anymore. It's been a long 3 weeks. The other thing too, dude, I didn't leave the house without my gun like for 3 weeks.
No, I don't blame you on that.
We're talking like hours, of carrying that thing around, because people get weird when stuff like this happens. I didn't see any looting. Thankfully, we didn't really have any trouble in the area that we were at. But yeah, man, people they get weird. They get angry. people are hurting, so it's understandable. But also, there's a lot of people, man, that like they need to grow up. They need to be adults about a situation. Like, you're not a child. I understand that you're hurting, and I was telling some people this that I work with. It's like, it's not appropriate because it's like we all went through it. Not to the same degree, and it's understandable. Like, if you lost people, if you lost everything, believe me, I understand. Doesn't give you the right to treat me like trash.
Yeah.
It's not appropriate,
Exactly.
And unfortunately, run into a little bit of that too. Speaking of getting treated for like trash for existing, the one thing that I was not looking forward to when we got back was having to finish out Rings of Power, and I waited to the literal last minute, Joseph, to do this
Today, right before the show.
Oh my word!
Now, would you say Hurricane Helene was better or worse than the Rings of Power? I'm just kidding.
Oh, dude. Man, it's kind of on par. A lot of similar emotions going through. Yeah. So, I'll give the last 2 episodes this. They're funnier than the rest of the season. I think I laughed more in the last 2 episodes than I did. What was it? It's 8 episodes, right? So the previous 6. It kind of felt like a return to form as far as the like, what? Why? Huh? Like, there's just so many times you're like, who thought this was a good idea? And we can't, let's get it out of the way now. Because we had talked about it a little bit on, because I'd seen some clips on Twitter. Like, there was no way for me to avoid any of the spoilers, really, because I didn't have a whole lot to do, and I was like, with all this going on, there's no way I'm finishing this show out. But I did see like all of the major moments. I think one of the last things that I knew about before losing power was Galadriel and sorry, his name's slipping my mind, and Elrond kissing.
Grandma. Oh yeah.
Yeah. It was like one of the last things that I knew about, and then like when
it's been that long.
I know, it's crazy, right? And then seeing some of the stuff with the Balrog, and then Amazon spoiled all of the people that died in the last like 2 episodes. They literally put out a tweet that was like pictures of all like 4 or 5 people, and were basically like said something along the lines of like hit in the feels, or whatever their like generic tweet about it was. And I was like, oh, okay, so they all die. So it was just me sitting around like waiting, like how's it gonna happen, like what what's going on. But let me get it out of the way. Like, yes, the Balrog looks good. That scene is still dumb for a number of reasons. Just like it's nonsensical for the most part. I think maybe some of the stuff with the dwarves, it's at least, as far as like from beginning to where they are by the end of the season, it's at least like something. Like, you kind of it's not great, right? There's a lot of problems that we've talked about along the way, but you're kind of like, right, well, I mean, at least it's like, okay, there was this, they were trying to do like a redemption thing. He, quote unquote, sacrifices himself, but like, I don't really know. Yeah, like,
for the father to sacrifice himself.
It's just because it's like a lot of the stuff in the show. It's because it had to happen. Not to mention the Balrog like whips him around the leg and pulls him like a foot and then lets go, so that it can keep happening. And I was like, what?
That was so they could have their Gandalf moment.
Yeah, right. Yeah, one of many, bro. Oh, dude. Oh, there's so many things. There's so much stuff we're not even gonna get to.
This is its own thing, and we're not copying Peter Jackson.
And
or previous,
dude, the
and all
last
the second season is copying
is
it.
copy. And the last 30 minutes of the last episode, they were like, we're literally just gonna to take stuff from Lord of the Rings. Sam's speech, the whole thing with like Frodo getting stabbed.
Dude, how about the wizard, the dark wizard, dropping this guy out and having everyone in a complete vulnerable situation, just being like, "When you get your powers back and you can defeat me, I'll come back."
Oh, dude, yeah, Galadriel surviving literally because she's supposed to.
Oh yeah,
Like,
just completely falling like 700, 1,000 feet in the air, or
yeah,
hundreds of feet in the air, and it doing absolutely nothing to her.
Sauron's power level is still just like pathetic. It makes no sense at this point. Like he literally takes Celebrimbor, stabs him, lifts him into the air with one hand, right? Like does something that is incredibly impossible, and then just like can't beat Galadriel. Well, I mean he does, but like he struggles, quote unquote. You know what I mean? Like she's doing all these karate kicks and stuff, and he's like flying across the screen. I'm like, what? It was like he would just take that. Like you've shown me what he can do. And then you're showing me this. It's like those two things don't add up.
Right.
You know? Plus her sword work in that fight, I mean the whole thing's not very good, but he makes her look pretty bad in that fight.
Yeah, he does.
Just from, I say what you will about what I'm about to say, folks, but like typically when you've got like a man and a woman fighting like that, especially when he has like a distinct like physical size advantage over her, a lot of the time it just makes it look like he's holding back. It just does. It's not so good. It's not so good. I don't know, man.
Freaking old elf lady getting thrown off the cliff, or off the castle.
Dude,
excuse me. Dude, I was rolling so hard that how they were trying to, clearly. Okay, all right. Let's back up. First off, my biggest complaint is like people are going to be like, well, it's in lore that Sauron, manipulated Celebrimbor and the other elves of Arcane to get him into his master plan. Yeah, it's not the fact of like them and if you want to be generous, sticking to the lore with that, right?
Yeah,
it's the manner in which they did it. It's
Yeah.
so obvious.
Yeah.
It made Celebrimbor and the other elves look completely stupid.
Yeah, and
like this is so obvious that he's manipulating Celebrimbor.
Yeah,
like,
and the biggest one of the
because
biggest
when you read the books,
sorry,
that's not the impression you get at all. Like Sauron manipulated everyone so well that it probably you could. One of the things that if they wanted to be creative and lead to, could have been the reason why why Galadriel and Celeborn got kicked out.
Yeah,
of Arcane.
Yeah, you could do that. You could also, I think, take some creative,
But everything was just so on the nose. Excuse me, his manipulation.
Right. No, you're absolutely right, and I think they could have done something where. So, you've got like the sacking of happening, and it's just sort of like, okay, so we know that they've been fooled by this guy, but then you have like all of the orcs coming in, and it's all weird, right? Just because of, sorry, it's been a couple weeks, so some of these names have slipped my mind a little bit. Adar is doing his whole deal, and Sauron's kind of just like letting it happen, but. The elves and everyone seem extra weak in this, and I don't know, there could have been like an in-world explanation, like Sauron is like sucking away some of the, like they're blinded a little bit, and so the fact that they're losing, and then like that these elves aren't sitting on top of this thing just sniping everyone that comes at that, like, because it's weird, right? Like when you've read the books and you understand the characteristics of the elves, and then you're watching what they're doing with them, you're like, this doesn't seem right. There's plenty of problems, right? I mean, they hit the mountain with the trebuchets to make a bridge for them to get over the water, and bro, the whole thing with the dark and the light, like I get what they were going for, right? But they kind of do that, and then you're just like, well, they're kind of just out in the day at this point. Like they're all mixed up together fighting, and it's like, can they do that? and it feels like they were like, we need to show this because you know how we talk a lot about how in with this kind of stuff, you want to be able to show certain things because it needs to be believable, right? It's not
Right.
because in fantasy magic doesn't exist. The discussion and needs to go a little bit deeper with that. And so, yes, okay, so let's just say whatever, there's some kind of magic that is affecting the orcs. And they're able to do the thing that they're doing. But then when you have them in other places, it's like you need to kind of continue to show that whatever this darkness is taking over the entire area in a specific way, right? Not like it can be subtle in the way that you do it, but enough so that at any point you're not looking at it and you're like, they're just hanging out in the daytime.
Yeah.
Like this isn't right the way that this is going down, right? There's a lot of issues with it, but the details ultimately in things like this, and we can talk about it at some point because I got Arcane on 4K, and there's a lot of special features in it, and it has made me very. It's taken away a lot of concerns for me for season 2.
Oh yeah. How much they care?
Dude, I don't want to get into it right now, but it is. Watching some of the special features, I don't know if you can find them on YouTube anywhere, like if they just have them there. But the way that they have like an 18-minute segment about creating Mel, and I was just like, these people actually care about what they're doing. Everybody,
It's nice and refreshing, isn't it?
everybody who's involved from the person who was creating her look to the voice actress, everyone is like, this is the character that she is. They're talking about how complex she is and that she's not. She's supposed to be this kind of start out as this femme fatale, but she still has feelings. And so, though she is that, they're also doing this. And I'm sitting there like it's almost like hurting my brain because I'm like, no one talks about stuff like this anymore. But when you have a group of people who are legitimately passionate about the thing that they're creating and the world that they're creating and the way that these characters are supposed to act and behave and the way that they interact with each other and how that can affect them and like the little details. Joseph, I have watched Arcane season 1 all the way through probably 10 times at this point. I mean, if it's not that, it's close. Like I've watched that first season a lot, and there's still little things every once in a while that I'm like, oh, I never noticed that before. Like stuff that's just little background things that you're like, oh, and you're like, oh, that's so cool. That's like a little personality thing about this character. Like just because of stuff that they've got like hanging on their walls, just some of the stuff that like Mel paints. There's a lot of these little details that go into that, and I'm like, this is so refreshing that they've spent so much time being meticulous about like, okay, we have to put this here. We're putting this here, and maybe people will notice it, or it is just like nice in the background, and there's all these other things going on with like the stuff with the characters, and there's a lot of like little things that I've heard of like rumors and stuff. I've stayed away from trailers as much as possible, and really anything because I think a couple of the episodes from season 2 got leaked, or at least the plot points did, and I'm just like, and then the voice actress for Jinx said that season 2 is going to be like devastating, and I was like, I can't wait.
I know.
I'm so
dude.
excited.
It's nice to have something
yeah.
so well done and intentional and crafted well. I know, like, the 2 things to tell you. There was one, I can't remember who it was. I'd have to go back to Twitter, but someone was saying in some game or some script that's not, I don't even think it's been in development, but someone's writing on a script for a popular video game. I can't remember which one it is.
Yeah.
And they were asking an interviewer was asking him, how long is it going to take to write the script, whoever this writer was. And he said it could take 6 months, it could take 12 years. Depends on when the script's ready and when it's right.
Dude, they almost canceled Arcane. They
did.
Yeah, they put the first episode. They were working on the pilot, and they were running into some troubles with things, and the entire team was on board. That was like, if it's not right, then we're not releasing it. Like we're not even gonna. It's not gonna become a thing. So it's why it's taken so long. They have all the assets and everything, and so there's because you're talking about creating like an animated thing. Like once you have your assets, the time to do certain things goes down. I mean, because they started that project. I think they said, Joseph, I want to say they said 2014
Wow,
is when they started.
that's a long time.
Yeah, I was even shocked by that. So they were working really really hard to get this thing like completely put together. So I'm stoked, man. Like, cause they're finishing out Vi and Jinx's story, I think, in this season, and I don't know if like the next thing they do is going to be called Arcane or if they're going to do something else. Because Echo in particular is, I think, I could be wrong. If I think he's pretty safe as far as like this season is concerned, because I think they're setting him up for some other stuff. Because I can't remember exactly what they said, but they refer to him as either the boy who broke time or something like that. So they're gonna get in into some like timey-wimey type stuff with the show at some point. And that's hinted at in season 1, but obviously like he hasn't gotten his abilities yet. And so there's a lot going on. Oh, sorry, guys. I know we're supposed to be talking about how bad Lord of the Rings are, but dude, I've told you this already. But if season 2 is bad, I'm gonna need another 3 weeks to recover.
You have to go to therapy.
Oh, dude.
But no, I wanted to tell you that Rafe Judkins is out for making the God of War live action.
Oh, I heard. Yeah, they just need to cancel that. I don't want to see it. We don't need it. We have it already. The story has already been told. There's nothing that they can do that's going to make it better. Like 0 things that they can do. Like they're not.
Oh no, dude. They can make it for a modern audience.
Oh, bro.
That would make it better, in my opinion.
They just, I mean, it's
anytime I think of reading a book, watching a show or movie, I think, does this reflect the world we live in today?
Oh, dude. We're kind of all, everyone, I do apologize. We're all over the place. There's been so much that's happened.
Hang on. Let's wrap up our Lord of the Rings thoughts. It absolutely sucked, the end.
Yeah, it is. It's very bad. It's very cringe. They did finally, shocker, Joseph, that the wizard is Gandalf, Grand Elf. And everyone walks by him and goes, Grand Elf, Grand Elf, Grand Elf. He's like, Grand Elf, huh? And you're like, please stop. Please stop.
Dying, dude.
And then freaking
of all the ways to invent the origin of his name, that's what they've
never seen an elf before, so he's just, and you're like, no. And then he ends up with Gandalf, and you're like, what?
What, like, it didn't make sense why he would just drop the R, and everything else, like how it worked. I mean, it just I don't know.
My favorite part though of that whole thing is when he picks up his staff, right, and he's like walking back. And he goes to hang out with Tom Bombadil, and Tom Bombadil's like, the wizard doesn't find his staff, the staff finds the wizard. And I'm like, bruh, he found the staff.
Yeah, freaking Harry Potter.
He found the staff. The staff didn't like land on top of him. He literally was looking around and went, oh, look, there's a stick. And he picked it up, and he's like, this is my staff now. That's what happened.
They freaking Harry Pottered it with that. As soon as I heard that line, I was like, I turned to my keeper and I said, I can't believe they just did Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings.
Dude, yeah, they had, like, I don't think it's hyperbolic to be like, they're just stealing from other more popular stuff at this point.
In the troll room, I'm sorry, let me just interject here and say, Anemia Casual said Grand Elf was dog crap. I was still hoping they would be blue wizards. Yeah, there was a slight bit to where I was hoping, like, but at the same sense, it wouldn't have made it any better. It just still would have been stupid in how they did everything, putting Tom Bombadil in there in the East, just basically ripping out Lord of the Rings, in the Fellowship of the Ring, his chapters in there, inserting it into a place where it doesn't belong in a way that it doesn't belong. I mean, heck, you have so many people who have adapted Lord of the Rings that have chosen not to do Tom Bombadil in the story that he's actually set in.
Yeah.
That's narrative is complete because of his enigma, and yet they think that honestly, what it really just sounds like is let's put Tom Bombadil, let's put all these different pieces in the show to try and drum up some marketing so we can get more eyes on this.
Yeah.
But David, like I wanted to do an in-depth dive on this, but the more episodes kept going by, I'm like, what's the point? I just don't care. I don't even want to watch season 3 and review it.
Dude,
I
I'm
just
so
don't care.
Is it so? Has it? I know there was. Okay, so where does season 3 stand at this point? Because there was this like pretty hard push after it ended that season 3 was going to happening, that they were going to announce something soon about it, and then I never heard anything about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'll probably get announced. The budget will probably slashed tremendously.
Yeah, again.
And yeah, again. And then I really just think that there's no way they made money on season 2.
No, I mean,
I don't see them investing a lot. If they do want to do all,
so because here's
5 seasons, it's going to be heavily, stripped of its budget to try and make a profit or bring it to even. I just don't see it as viable. The smart thing to do would for them to just go ahead and close shop and admit they lost.
It's
because
really,
they have, and they came out with numbers that 145 million people globally. They worded it in such a way to try and make you think that it's watched.
Yeah.
But dude, how are you counting those metrics? Are you talking about anybody that just glimpsed at it? Are you, because I know from season 1, I can't remember what it was. It's slipping my mind now, but they're deceptive in some of the things they use to count as a view for season 1. And I'm sure the same metrics are at play here. So it sucked. Everybody knows it sucked. There's not that much hype around it online. No one really cares. I see people every once in a while talking about how they liked it. I'm like, good for you. I don't even care. Next.
Bro, one of the guys that I work with, he was like, yeah, I just started it. And he was like, I was like, oh, David, have you seen it? And I was like, yeah, it's terrible. And he was like, what? He started season 1, I guess. And then I apologized to him and I was like, hey, listen, I think it's terrible. I was like, I hate what they did as far as, they're stealing a lot of stuff. It's completely inaccurate to like what Tolkien set up Lord of the Rings as, like, just walking through stuff. And I looked down and I was like, have you seen Arcane? And he was like, have I seen what? And it took a little convincing because the animated thing for a lot of people, they're like, oh, I don't want to watch something animated. I'm like, listen, watch the first 3 episodes. I was like, please. I was like, just watch the first 3 episodes. Like, if it doesn't have you by then, there's probably nothing I can do for you. I was like, but if that gets you, I was like, you're going to like it. And he did. He watched, he literally sat down, watched the first 3 episodes, and he's like, this is great. But yeah, man, it doesn't seem like it's going anywhere. Twitter's like a terrible, people just aren't talking about it.
No,
you know what I
we
mean?
should be talking about. We should be arguing. Arguing about the good parts of it, right?
Yeah.
Or what did this mean to you? And I mean arguing in a good way, not in a
is this
argumentative, and theorizing about things. And there's so much of a journey this show could have led everyone on that it just completely and utterly failed at.
Yeah, it's pretty sad. And,
but I'll always have the memory of the elf lady being thrown off the castle.
Dude, the way that happens it's ridiculous. That poor lady. I feel bad for that actress,
I know.
At least she's not in the show anymore, and neither is Adar, I guess. Aaron, that part was ridiculous.
Oh, I was totally hoping when they revealed him as being healed from Ninya, I was really hoping he was going to say, "It's me, Philip."
Yeah,
I guess, please.
Listen, who knows? That could have been a rewrite. That could have been what they were doing, and then when they saw it, they're like, "Oh, we can't do that." This season, something else I was kind of thinking about. It feels completely different from season 1. I don't know if you kind of felt the same way. It's very. I maybe I need to think about it a little bit more now that it's over. It's probably not worth thinking too much about at this point, but it's a lot darker they clearly were trying to push a lot harder as far as like some of the violence in it, and they're trying. Oh, dude, all of the. This is the year, Joseph, for the people kissing in television shows and it being completely undeserved.
Yes.
Like just out of nowhere. It's the strangest, like no setup whatsoever. And it's like, okay, we had one in House of the Dragon, right? And there are three in this in the last couple of episodes where you're like, you haven't developed this at all. Where is this coming from? And then, of course, all of the cope after the Galadriel and Elrond kiss, where they're like, "Oh, what did it really mean? It's not what you think." And it's like, bro, I've seen the scene. I've heard the music that they played behind the scene. You can see the picture in the thumbnail. You tell me what that is. You tell me what that is. Like, come on. Like,
and yeah. And speaking of Adar getting stabbed 100 times by the orcs, I'm like, oh gosh, because Sauron got stabbed.
He's right. No, is it Mimia? Sorry, Mimia, if I'm saying your name wrong. Yeah, it is fair that he might not be dead.
Yeah.
He could have survived that. But they were doing the whole thing that's like, oh, see how it happened to Sauron at the beginning of the season, and at the end of the season it happened to Adar? Look how it came full circle. You're just like, this is so sad.
Yeah.
This is all you've got? Like, oh, wow, yeah, congratulations. It is funny. It's totally on a different level. But I've been watching, EFAP's been doing coverage of Star Wars Outlaws.
Yeah.
I think Mahler has played through that game twice. He hates it. There's like a 4-hour supercut of a bunch of them playing it and all of the like insane stuff that's happening in that game. Just like how it's awful. The top tier of that game, Joseph, costs $130, and it's super buggy. It crashes all the time. It's the most unreal thing I've ever seen, and it's an interesting connection with this because people want us to praise things for stuff that should just be considered like, I don't want to say bare minimum, but like your foundational stuff for a show.
Yes.
Same thing in video games too. Stuff that's like people have been doing for years. People are praising this stuff like no one's ever done it before, and it's like, no, that's supposed to be the standard at this point for like a AAA or quadruple A game, whatever, right? Like whatever their PR-ish lingo that they're using.
There's
the
fundamentals that you're expected to adhere to, and then there's everything else. And when you get the fundamentals and the basics. Sorry,
go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say most of what we talk about is fundamentals, and how they're not doing the stuff they're supposed to be doing. Everyone can say like, wow, the Balrog looks good, but it's like, yeah, but like it doesn't mean much.
I'm just confused why when he went and hit the Balrog's weapon and his weapon clashed, why it exploded like that. Like that doesn't make any that's not dwarf.
Yeah, he's a dwarf. Like it doesn't
That's
no, that's the thing though, dude, is like I'm pretty sure it's just like we have to make it look cool. That's it.
Yeah.
That was the entire thought process behind that. Which, listen, that's fine if you earn it. I can overlook it and be like, yeah, they just wanted to do something kind of like whatever. It's like you can like it, you don't have to like it, but at least it would have been somewhat earned at the time. Not to mention like we don't have to get super into it, but like the way that they did it, I don't know. Have you ever seen Reign of Fire?
Yes, I have.
Okay, so spoilers for Reign of Fire that came out in like 2003, but Matthew McConaughey does something similar towards the end of that movie where he jumps off of a building with his axe and he's like way above. It's all, what's the word I'm looking for? The way that I want to explain this is like when you're thinking about like the visual of, I guess it's the there's a term for it, but it's slipping my mind. But like when you're looking at a visual and you want to have something really big and then something much smaller, and you still need it to look epic, the thing that's smaller needs to be above the thing that's bigger. Like the angle that you're shooting this at, the way that you're staging the shot, That's the way it needs to look. This is like a basic kind of thing. And sorry, I'm like moving my hands around, not that anybody can see this, but like Durin needed to be above the Balrog. He needed to be
Yes.
he needed to be able to jump, and he needed to be coming down at the Balrog, right? But the way that they
Right.
did it is he's like coming like right at it, and it just and they slow it down, and it just looks really weird for way too long. And the way that you need to handle that, and the way that shot looks better is if, you know, it doesn't have to be like a POV shot from Durin the fourth. Is it the fourth? I can't remember which one's which. The third is the one who was
Yeah.
attacking the Balrog, right?
I think so.
So anyway,
Something like that.
so the
Maybe the
older,
fourth.
I'm just gonna call him the older Durin. He the way that they needed to do that was, you can see the Balrog down in the hole to some degree, and maybe it's it is trying to make its way back. It's kind of making its way up, and he needs to do something. Oh, the only reason that explosion happened too, dude, is so that they could cut off the passage. You know, they put some boulders in the way because the
Yes.
Balrog's not going to be able to get through a couple boulders. But the way that you do that is that you need to.
That's all. That's all the George needed to know in the books was, hey, if we just put the boulders where it's at, that will prevent
Yeah,
it from
yeah. If we put some
attacking.
rocks in the way, it can't get us. We'll encase him there. It'll be fine. So like I'm saying, he needed to be above him. They needed to push that shot out so that you could. The best way that I would be able to explain it is if you see the shot from Rain of Fire. It's so funny that that's the thing that came to mind, but it's similar because I think he's got an axe or he's got something similar, and he's trying to like go at the dragon from the top, and he does that, and like the dragon is kind of below him. So like the way you need to do that, even though you know he's not going to be able to beat this thing, like we all know it's what's going to happen, but he's trying to give them time or whatever. You know, obviously he should have been like, hey, like you need to seal the entrance or whatever. So the explosion shouldn't have happened during the younger Durin. He should have been able to like just seal it off, because
Right.
your explanations for everything are kind of dumb anyway. So just seal it off. Like that's fine. We can push that aside and we'll deal with the Balrog another time. But yeah, the way that they handled that, it's like he's jumping like right at him, and it's just a weird angle, and the slowdown doesn't look very good from that shot. And then of course like the explosion that doesn't make any sense. Not because again they don't set anything up. So even if it was like, oh, he's got a magic axe that was gifted to him by the elves, and it was made by Celebrimbor, so it's just special axe. So when it blows up, everyone goes special axe. Let's move on.
Dude, I love how Isildur isn't even a thought for the last like 3 episodes or 4 episodes, and then except for in the very last episode, right? And then they sneak him in there.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh yeah, we can't forget about him. And because I kept asking, where is he?
Oh, dude,
and
he's just been hanging out in a village, trying to get with another dude's wife. You know, because that's the show. That's the show that we're in. Because we can't have like legitimate heroes anymore.
No. And then Adar stabbing what's his name, freaking legless character.
Oh yeah,
Arondir.
Arondir. I thought he was dead. I was like, whoa, they're gonna kill him? No. I did that a couple of times in the episode. I was like, oh my gosh, they're actually gonna kill someone. Like I thought.
I was like, good for him. Finally, he got out of the show.
Yeah, and like the same thing with Disa, right? Like I was like, whoa, are they actually gonna have the nuts to kill Disa off? And I was like, oh no, like all of those, she's like guarding the entrance, and then Durin sends all of those other guys to try to stop his dad, and then they all get cut down, and Disa's like, oh, he got past us all. I was like, why are you not even hurt?
Dude,
What?
when the big thing to prevent the dwarves from going back there
Was the
before the Balrog was her sinking
And the bats, bro.
and then Durin just comes out and it says whatever and then gives her a kiss or whatnot. I'm like, oh my gosh, this writing is putrid.
Yeah.
But hey, I never thought I would say this, but thank God for the penguin.
It's wild, right?
Dude, how sad is that?
Now, we won't be spoiling it, at least not yet, because I haven't had enough time to. I've been catching up on so much stuff. I haven't had time to watch all of it. But so far it's excellent.
Tell him how Penguin dies in the last
Yeah, right.
episode.
Yeah, no problems. At least recommending it so far. You know.
Yep.
Really, really, really cool what they've been doing with it. Very impressed with the first episode. Dude, it's probably better than the Batman.
Dude, it is so far.
It's
That
probably
wasn't it you I was saying that to?
maybe. I'm I'm a little bit biased. Like I think you can find our review for the Batman somewhere on the channel. It was what it was that like a couple years ago now.
Yeah.
Short version of it. There's some cool stuff in it. The detective stuff I think gets overhyped, and it shouldn't have had that fourth act. It goes on a little
No.
bit. It goes on a little bit too long. That's the short
I
version.
think the first 3 acts is good are good, and I think the fourth act, if they wanted to do the fourth act like that, if they wanted to do a fourth act, they shouldn't have made the Riddler just devolve into just a regular old psycho killer.
Yeah.
They should have just kept everything else they had done previously to leave the audience questioning, hey, like that moral kind of conundrum, like he was killing people, but it was really, really bad people. Is this right for him to, kind of be this villainous vigilante?
Something like that, yeah. It's been a couple years. The only other thing I remember that is Catwoman's white privilege.
Oh.
You're just like, right, right. Yeah, yeah. It's just some interesting stuff. I like the opening. I like the setting. Like what they've done with Gotham. I think I'm ready for someone to take the mantle of the Batman series and do something that's a little closer to like the animated Batman.
The animated Batman TV series.
Yeah, like something a little more
a
little more fantastical, like Gotham.
Agreed.
Yeah, I'm not talking about like the 90s / early 2000s fantastical. Like it's a fine line, but like I want to see some of the other villains that we like they keep playing it safe with the villains. They're using the villains that it's easy to do because it's not like Mr. Freeze, it's not Poison Ivy, they're Clayface. Like there's stuff you could do. I mean, I get it feels like they're just too afraid to get away from like Joker, which it's like maybe we can. Maybe Joker and Harley Quinn can not be in anything for a little while.
He did a good job with the Riddler and how I think that aspect of making the Riddler.
Well, until he started singing, the singing stuff was a little bit cringe. That, like I said, it's really the fourth act.
Yes.
Once they kind of get into that, I was not, I wasn't feeling it.
I agree.
Sure.
I agree. I was just saying like that wasn't a bad idea, but I think like if they just did the Batman animated TV series, one of the best animated TV series of all time.
Yeah. They just need to
live
take
action adaptation of that.
Well,
Boom,
it's less of an adaptation and just using it as like reference. Like leave it be. Like if they want to be like, hey, like we're gonna take reference from the animated series, we're gonna try to do some of the.
I mean, in the fantastical sense.
Yeah, for sure.
Because I don't necessarily need to see another grounded attempt at a superhero movie.
Yeah, I'm a little over it. I'd like them,
or hyper realism, whatever you want to say. Like,
yeah, I'd like them to go down like embrace like, and Hollywood has a problem with this, but like embrace the comic book nature of this stuff. You know, I think people would like that. Really it is, yeah, for sure. I'm happy with it. The acting's great. And Joseph, it is one of those shows where a majority of it is people talking. It's very dialogue heavy, and it works. And you don't have a lot of people explaining the plot to you. It's a lot of these dynamics of the different families. David, and
you say this, but one of the lead characters in it is a female.
Oh, God forbid.
And we've gotten a lot of comments, specifically you have, that you don't like female-led shows. Care to address that?
Sure. Yeah, the show that I'm most excited for this year, I think, very clearly female-led.
People are when it's like, yeah, one of our favorite shows of the past 5 years, one of our favorite shows of all time is Arcane, which is pretty much just
it's one season so far. And if they nail this is where I'm at with Arcane right now, Joseph. If they can nail season 2, that as its own little thing it's be like this is probably one of my favorite things of all time as far as like media is concerned, right?
Which
Like
is wild to say.
it is, but you look at just watching it again and thinking about the world that they have and the potential for them to tell stories. They have a lot of characters that they could tell stories about, like a lot. They have, like I said before, they have the assets that they need. Now all they have to do is design more characters. And with enough time, they have something special. Riot Games, like with what they're trying to do with this sort of like you could call it the Arcane universe or whatever. I mean, it's League of Legends, but like that as far as like I don't really care about the game. That's where the characters come from. I respect that. There's a lot of history there. Obviously, without that, we wouldn't have this. But I want to see the stories that they're going to tell of these characters and the interactions they might have. And, you have like Mel's mother and like that whole thing.
Yeah.
There's a ton of characters we haven't been introduced to yet. Even like stuff with Heimerdinger and like where they could do some prequel stuff easily in that, and it wouldn't feel like, it wouldn't be your normal like prequel stuff because he's seen so much. Like he's that key character that you would be able to connect with as they go back and you see some of the history of like early Piltover or the founding of it, and like getting a deeper sense, if they do it right, of course, of why like you could easily use it as a piece of content that gets you to understand Heimerdinger more and why he is the way that he is now. We don't necessarily need it because it's convincing enough as it is. Like they were like, you see a few things and you go, okay, I get it. I understand why Heimerdinger is the way that he is, but I also understand why people are pushing against him because it was so long ago and they have no reference for that the way that he does. He's literally like he's the elf in Arcane. Like they have the sort of like understanding of like I've seen a lot of things. But Jace is in the right too when he's like, we don't live for hundreds of years. Like we don't have the benefit of being able to wait that long. Like we need progress now. And you see both sides and you go, yeah, I get both sides of this, and then they both do things, that you're like, oh man, I don't know if that was the right move for you. Like, but it's all based on like their personal experiences and you believe it because they're well written. And you can pretty much say that for every character.
And when does the second season release?
November 2nd. That's when the first 3 episodes come out because they're going to do it in a 3-part arc, just like they did with the first season. I think it's gonna be really, really interesting. And I hope. I mean, like I said before, with what they've talked about and the team that they've got, as long as like that hasn't really changed, and that's the biggest worry, man, because like I've just seen so much of the stuff that I've really enjoyed just get like crapped on,
Yeah.
Even going back to Rings of Power, like it's an actual insult to Tolkien, to his legacy. Like there's nothing in this that's honoring what he did. And Riot making this, they have the opportunity to do something like that, to legitimately justify, like to take something as crazy as like League of Legends, right? This popular game, and take that world that they created and really turn it into something special. But their entire team has to be on board. Like it has to be the kind of team that they're like, they're very protective of the product, of like the thing that they're creating. In the same way that's the thing that I'm realizing, man, is like, and I knew it before, but seeing it, it's funny to say, but like seeing it in a modern context with a group of people who created the first season and the way that they're talking about it and being like, if we don't like this, we're not putting this out.
Yeah.
And so that's the difference for me. We've talked about some of this before, but like that's the difference between sort of like the corpo garbage that you get now that's like Lord of the Rings at this point, looks like Harry Potter potentially.
What's up
You
with
know,
the whole Harry Pooter?
the person, one of the writers and or showrunners, I can't remember who it was, somebody that's working pretty intimately on the project, is basically like, I don't give a crap about the books. It's like, great. I mean, listen, I've got my problems with the books, but it's just like that. It's the same, dude. It is the same thing over and over and over again, every single time. And it's like, y'all, and this is the problem, is like a lot of the people who get involved in these projects, like they just don't understand genre, and they don't understand the need to be like obsessive about the piece of work that you're doing, because the people who are into this stuff are that way about it.
Yep.
That's what it is, you know. They are like, they're gonna watch Lord of the Rings or read Lord of the Rings, or, you know, like they're gonna consume everything they can get their hands on about it because they love it, you know. They're gonna know it inside and out, to the point where from the outside people look at it and be like, what? Like, this is weird, you know. And that's what Hollywood does, is like they know this stuff's popular, they know a lot of it will make money, and then they just make the most like generic version of it, especially these days. And it's rare that you have something come out and it's like, oh wow, like you can tell they really cared about this. Unfortunately, you're kind of seeing it with House of the Dragon. Like, it's definitely, I don't think season 2 is bad, but like you can see the fraying edges of like where it's sort of like how much do you guys really care about what you're doing at this point? Like,
Yeah.
the attention to detail was definitely lost in a lot of things in season 2. And I don't think it's going to happen with Arcane, but like, man, Scott Pilgrim last year and like what they did with that, and completely like okie doking everybody with it, and bait and switching Scott out in like the first episode. You know, they did it with He-Man. I go down the line, man. Like, we talk about this all the time, but like they've completely destroyed a lot of the product, or I say products, God, that's just not what I mean. But a lot of these IPs that were beloved, they're just not anymore, because Hollywood, they don't have any idea what they're doing at this point. It's all about content. They're just trying to hire people, anyone who's got any experience. They're throwing them into these massively complicated projects, and they're getting ruined. And then everyone's like, this sucks, and then they go, it's your fault. And it's like, what?
Yeah.
You know, it's like you're going to your job, trying to make some money, trying to help your family out, and then it's like, yeah, you know, this thing that you really love and that you're upset about that they've ruined these characters. Yeah, it's your fault. You're the reason it's like this. You Joseph, you are the reason that Galadriel had to kiss Elrond.
Yeah.
It's your fault. It's weird behavior.
Yeah.
And at this point, like, I don't know. It does. People are kind of positive about like where things are headed. I'm still just kind of, I'm still waiting. Arcane sort of feels like a bastion for me, and that's why I'm a little concerned. Fears were made easier by watching a lot of those special features for that, but it's been how many years? That came out in what, 2019, 2020? I don't
That?
Arcane, like season 1.
Season 1 came out in 21, I think.
Was it 21? Okay, so
yeah,
it's been 3 years. 21 was in the middle of like all of this stuff, though. Like, things were pretty bad then.
It came out in the middle of all the bull crap.
You know what's funny though? I have this feeling that, because like, see, I don't know if you remember, but like season 1 was divisive for different reasons. For a couple different reasons. I think to be fair to those people, like, I understand that you see like the two main characters have pink hair. You know, Vi's got like the shaved cut on the side, and Jinx has blue hair. You know, but it's like they're video game characters, right? Like they've always been
Very
like that.
in line with that.
They were designed. Yeah, they were designed that way quite a while ago. But I can understand why people were a little bit nervous. And I remember having discussions with some people who were like, this isn't like, just different stuff about like why they like didn't like it as much, and it was just sort of like, huh? Like it didn't make sense to me. It was stuff like they didn't think like Jinx should have had the turn that she did, and I remember specifically someone saying that. I think I was in their like live stream or something, and I was like, y'all, she watched her parents get murdered, right? And then she killed her stepfather. Sorry, spoilers for season 1. You should watch season 1; it's amazing. And I'm and then it's like, nah, and you're like, wait. So you don't think that watching your parents get murdered and then blaming yourself because it was her fault, but like blaming yourself for that, and then having like Silco take you under his wing, like you don't think that she could turn out like that? Like it's not believable? No. Okay. No hope there. Sorry. I don't know what to tell you then. Like I don't know what would have made that more believable. And then like the other thing that was a little annoying, and it's funny because the guys from Riot, like the guys that made the game, or sorry, that made the show, were saying too that like they really were working hard not to make Jinx like just a Joker character, which she's not.
Yeah.
But a lot of people just kept referring to her as that, and it's like,
Right.
I mean, there's a lot more going on there. I don't know. We won't bring comic book Joker into it because I'm sure someone would point to like specific issues that I've never heard of and be like, yeah, but here it's like, okay, but if we're talking from like cinema perspective, like he's got some interesting things going on, but he you don't have the kind of history that you do with somebody like Jinx. Like you're very aware of why she is the way that he is, and one of the things that I love that they've talked about is that one of the sort of like, I guess you could call it a theme, but one of the kind of plot points that they're trying to get across here is like, is it possible to redeem a monster?
Yeah.
And that's going to play, it's not just her. There are a couple characters. I won't say anything because of one of the characters that's going to be in this season, but that's potentially going to have like a literal, like maybe a little more literal than like what Jinx is, you know what I mean? Because she's still human, but there may or may not be an actual monster in this season. So it's dude, I can't wait. I can't wait to talk to you about this.
That idea of, is it possible to redeem a monster? And
Me too.
Like the redemption arcs kind of, I just can't really remember that much of it. It's almost like our culture has gotten, again, not necessarily that it was in this idea of redemption and people being able to come back from things, but seems to have definitely progressed to a point to where you're not allowed to be redeemed anymore and change.
Yeah.
Like once you do something bad, that's it. It's over.
Yeah. And oh, man, this is gonna be an interesting one, especially if I'm like super into this because it's gonna get in some fights. Be like, y'all are just wrong about this, but man, I really hope it's good, and I hope that they really. I'm gonna watch it again. I finished it this past week, so I am gonna sit down and watch it again, and maybe take some notes, because I wanna be prepared when season 2 comes out. So
Right.
I've got an idea of like all of the connecting points to season 1 to be able to like reference stuff back. Guys, can you believe it? It's like I'm actually gonna like this is gonna be interesting with this show because this is gonna be a little bit different, I think, than us just sitting around being like, well, can you believe how terrible this scene was? This is gonna be a little more like, to some degree, like what it was when we talked about season 1, just because of the way that it's like the connecting pieces from season 1, the way that characters, they set certain things up. Have you rewatched it? Do you remember how season 1 ends? Because I'd forgotten.
Yes, I do remember how season 1 ends. It left an impression on me.
Yeah, I was
It ends with Jinx firing a rocket launcher into a place, right?
Yes, and
I know the specific place. I was just trying not to.
Yeah, we don't know the outcome of that. And once it happened, my mind immediately went back to when we were talking about that because we were speculating like the outcome of that at the end of that episode. Bro, I feel like you need to watch it again, and we just need to talk about it again.
Yeah.
Because we've got 2 weeks?
Yes.
Are you okay? Can we do that?
I'm fine with talking about it. I'll do my best to watch it all. It's just hard with my schedule.
What if we do half and half? What if we split it into 2 weeks? Because
Like
then,
half
hang
of
on.
of season one and then the last half, so 4 episodes and 4 episodes.
Yeah, like 4 and 4.
Yeah,
So
I'm fine
we
with that.
have. Oh crap! It comes out. No. We would have to. We would have to talk about it next week because it comes out a week from this Saturday. You let me know.
Okay.
You let me know. Either way, I'm watching it again. And yeah, guys. It is very highly recommended. I don't know if a show has. Dude, just like I get sucked in every time I watch it.
Yeah.
You know, it's not,
I
and
don't blame
again,
you. It's a superb show in every single way.
yeah, it's not,
Narrative and character writing.
yeah, and they, man, like the complexity of, and not in like, because this is the problem talking about this stuff sometimes because unfortunately like we live in the world where they're trying to like everything is trying to make like the sympathetic villain,
Yep.
and I'm not sure they're doing that. Like Jinx for me, right, and the way that I see it, there is a sympathetic piece to that character, but they're not trying to excuse the things that she does.
Right.
At all. And she has like a really like the season is kind of doing the will she won't she with that till like the very end. And I don't know if the ending of season 1 and what they do with her is like them saying like definitively this is who she is now, or if there's still a little bit of wiggle room for something. Part of me, I have my personal, like the way that I would probably like it to play out. But I'm curious because I like the relationship with her and Vi, and I'm curious about where Vi goes this season too. Like this is the thing about it, man, is like speculating about every single character and the potential for the direction that they're headed in, what's going to happen, things that could happen that could, shift things as well. I'm trying to be kind of vague about it, even though we've said a little bit. Like it, there's a lot, man, and there's a lot of room to really dig into some of the other characters. I think being able to see like Echo and Heimerdinger like hanging out and the two of them like working together on stuff has a lot of potential for this season and for them to set up, because I would imagine their plan with this is not only, and it's weird because like this is like very positive in a way that's not the same for a lot of shows where like Marvel's constantly like trying to set up things for like the potential for future stories, but you're just like, oh, it's just like slop now. Whereas with this, I'm going like, man, like they really could do like some setup and things here for certain characters that would essentially be spinoffs or have them doing other things in stories that they tell down the line. They could be really, really cool.
Yeah.
Because
I hear you on that, man.
Yeah, I mean they have this massive world, dude. I mean like Piltover is like, it's a piece of it, and there's so much stuff that we haven't seen yet that they hint at in season 1, but that we don't know yet, and I'm really, really curious about it. Even if they do like movies, you know what I mean? Like give me like an hour and a half movie about like the founding of Piltover, or like Mel dealing like with her family stuff or whatever. Which I think we'll probably get some more of that. I'm curious if we'll get any more flashbacks. But yeah, dude. Oh, I can't wait. I'm so excited.
I know.
Oh, you know what we didn't get to talk about this week. Okay. I'll see if I can send it to you. You know how we've talked a lot about the whole like IGN scaling system for their reviews. So one of the women that used to work there kind of gave the whole thing away recently in a video. I don't know if you've seen any of it. Um,
No, I haven't. You
oh,
got to send it to
dude.
me.
Well, we need to just take like a little bit of time next week to talk about it, because it's kind of fascinating the like essentially her argument for it, for like why they give so many 7 out of 10s, and it's not good, dude. In fact, I would call it unprofessional. I mean, I think everyone
Ooh.
can look at it and go, this seems pretty unprofessional. I think she definitively gives us a pass to be like, yeah, the way that they review things is unprofessional.
Well, shoot me the video and let's talk about it next
I
week then.
I will. Dude, honestly, I couldn't believe it, and I can't believe it's not a bigger topic of conversation. Consider unless we just missed it. I mean, I was dealing with stuff for a couple of weeks. And unless we just that kind of like we missed that part of the internet somehow. But it's crazy, dude. Like it's a piece of gold as far as like any like I'm not that IGN's kind of like a massive joke at this point, but like at this point, anytime they give anything a score, it's just like, yeah, but this is why you guys do this. I don't want to ruin it because I feel like you need to watch it. It's crazy, dude. I need to see if I can find the actual video. You might want to jump around a little bit because she wastes a lot of time in the video, but it's yeah it comes off as like as pretty like echo chambery, and there's some stuff in there that people have said that like she's kind of like crapping on like small indie devs or like people who are trying to make their like little game to like put out on Steam or whatever. And it comes off very much like, oh, look at the pores in their crappy games that when I was a journalist at IGN, like we wouldn't give these the time of day or whatever. And yeah, talk about putting your foot in your mouth quite often. So yeah, we will. I'll send that to you. We'll talk about it next week because I think it's worth kind of giving a little bit of time to.
Yeah,
and
let's do it.
And if you can, we'll go through Arcane. Maybe not like full breakdown. And if we can't, what I might do is see if I can go back and find our old reviews of that, and maybe I can just put that out as a video, since we never. I don't think I ever did. So
Yeah,
we I think I've got
depends this week. I mean, you know what my work schedule is, so.
for sure, and who knows what I'm gonna be doing. I got to make sure they're not scheduling me late for next Monday. Anyway, Joseph, do you have anything else you want to add before we close out?
That is it, man.
Awesome. Well, it's good to be back. Hopefully, I've been playing some Black Myth Wukong. I might be doing a little more streaming soon.
Nice.
The city's still kind of under repair, so there's not a whole lot to do, like, out and about. So I may start doing that a little bit more. Oh, dude, you know what we didn't talk about? I guess we can wait till next week to really get into it. But we got demonetized.
Oh yeah, yeah. We got to talk about that next week.
Oh, okay. We'll get into that next week. I know you sent it in for a review. We now have to get our watch hours back up.
Yes.
I know. Maybe you saw that. I was looking at it
And we
today.
got a response on Twitter. That's one I'm gonna just keep calling it. I know it's called X, but
Yeah.
Twitter by Team YouTube, and they said, "Have you checked the earn section in Studio? You might be able to submit a more detailed video appeal directly to the review team here. Also, you can check there why your channel was demonetized." And I just like, dude, I don't feel like submitting a video appeal. Like, dude,
I know we have to
dumb.
do all this extra work when it's like, don't you guys have something?
Let's just not be monetized.
Well, we'll talk. We'll get back on value for value next week. We'll get back into everything. There was so much to catch up on, and we still haven't done everything. I've watched I watched Blue Eye Samurai. I've been watching this show Yellow Jackets. I'm sure there's a couple movies I can't remember that I've been playing. I got Wukong. I've been playing a couple like older games too. I didn't have I was trying to just like keep myself entertained because I got after like 3 or 4 days I was like I'm really tired of reading. I'm trying to remember if there was anything else. There's probably other stuff. I mean like even the stuff with Star Wars Outlaws has been wild to see. that Ubisoft's in trouble, man. They're in big trouble.
Yeah.
It's not good. The gaming industry is in a very strange place right now. But I hope, and I hope that anybody who listens to us regularly keeps in mind, don't dogpile's not the right word. That's not what I'm looking for. Be careful of sort of the collective mindset around things. Sometimes that has people have a tendency to see everything as like a nail to be hit with a hammer, when maybe a little more discussion is needed about certain things.
Yeah.
Some of it's is very obvious, but other times it's like, hey, like, let's actually talk about it, about the good, the bad, like where we think these things are coming in, because there's a lot of that stuff. Like it's interesting, dude. It's discussion for another time, and then we can go. But like everything going on with like DEI and all of that, and like people who have really like gained a lot of popularity because of those things. Like the curious thing about when that stuff happens is, do they have to keep that going once it's not really much of a thing anymore, or when it's really started, like the trend is now going down? Like say like Sweet Baby Inc. and a lot of these companies that have been doing this stuff in video games, like the stock trend for it just starts plummeting, and so the gaming industry is like changing, and people are really starting to just like get away from that and like actually make the art that they want to make, regardless of like are people still going to be trying to look for like the devil in the details versus like changing over to, man, look how great these things are, like this is something that I really love. I don't know when that's going to happen. It seems like we're a few years away from that, but I'd be curious to see what goes on, or if was it like in the Dark Knight, it's like you either die the hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain. There's a couple people that we've talked about recently that I worry about a little bit. That's like, oh no,
yeah,
like the heel turn. Man. But yeah, Joseph, it's good to be back. Thank you.
You got that right, brother. I'm glad you're safe. And
me too.
And everything.
I'm glad that is behind us and that we can kind of move forward with everything, because it was such a pain. I hate it. Like, it's just like sitting around and you're like, okay, we haven't done this in a while. So yeah, glad things are they're headed back in the right direction, and we'll have more to talk about next week. I hope you guys are ready for that discussion. It's gonna the next couple. Well, really. Let's see, the next like month or so, it's really going to be like Arcane, and then we'll have some like smaller stuff we're going to talk about, and try to maybe get some videos out, and then the streams will definitely be happening, I think, as far as like gaming is concerned. I want to do a little bit more of that. All right. Well,
all right,
Joseph, until next week, y'all take it easy.
See ya.